Now, what then, how do we look at technology? Well, let's first look at the fact that the Muslims were actually great technologists. And technology is a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason that we have tools is to help us, is to facilitate our life on earth. And the Prophet ﷺ used tools. He used chainmail. That's a tool. That is a technology. Chainmail to go into battle. It protects you. And Allah taught Dawood ﷺ how to make chainmail as a ni'mah for men. Fatima used a mortar and pestle. That is a type of technology. Right? You don't find animals out there with mortar and pestle, grinding their grain, like squirrels. You ever seen a squirrel with a mortar and pestle? Right? They just take in the little things and they have to chew them. And Allah could have made us like that. We could have had to do that with our grain, chewed it with our, break it down. But He didn't. He gave us an aqal, and He taught us how to utilize things in the earth. And He said, وَالَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He created everything in the earth for you. The Muslims developed rotational crop rotation. It's from the Muslims. Right? The farmers, the Islamic farmers, developed crop rotation as a way of increasing food output. But they did it in ways that are very different from the ways they're doing it now. They didn't exhaust the earth. They recognized when the oil, and then we have books written that taught them how to replenish the oil with manure, with ash, potassium, nitrogen. They didn't have the chemical specifications that they do now. But they had tawfiq from Allah to do the right thing. The Syrians had developed a system of glass blowing that in fact, and this is an example of early technology transfer, there was a truce made between the Venetians and the Syrians during the Crusades, and one of the stipulations in the truce was that the Muslims would teach the Venetians how to make glass. And they did this. And many of the Muslim rulers did not have a problem with teaching other people how to utilize these things because they saw them as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the difference in those Muslims and the difference in these people today is that they had tawfiq. And this is the difference. You see, it's not that technology is bad. It's that if you don't have tawfiq from Allah, your technology will destroy you. That's the difference. You see, is that when you have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah gives you tawfiq. When you're doing these things for the sake of Allah, Allah gives you tawfiq. And so those things become beneficial to you. And most of the technology that we have now, although it's always a double-edged sword, there's no pure good and pure evil in this earth, according to our tradition. There's always going to be good things and bad things. So there's technology that benefits us. Right? A car, I made it here from Danville in about 35 minutes. Right? It's an extraordinary event in relation to what people 150 years ago could have done. Right? I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to be able to move in those distances. But, according to our tradition, that is a sign of the end of time. تقارب الزمان والمكان. Distances and times become close. It's a sign of the end of time. Right? And then another sign is that the shaitan is the one that travels alone. Look at all the people in their cars, solitary travelers. Right? And this is one of the blessings of the train. The train to me has a lot more barakah than a car. I mean, I think a car is probably going to go down in history as one of the worst inventions ever. The train, it's a vehicle that, Allah is with the jama'ah. 50,000 people die every year in cars in this country. 50,000. And that's something, so that's more people than this country lost in Vietnam. Well, every year in car accidents, mostly involving drugs and alcohol. Right? And I was in the United Arab Emirates, and I was telling a man about, we were having a discussion with a Syrian taxi driver. This is a nice thing about the Arabs is you can have these really interesting conversations with taxi drivers. Right? You can have that here in this country too. Taxi drivers are actually very interesting because they like to talk. That's why they end up driving cabs usually, right? Because they have this captive audience. There was a guy that used to get on planes just so he could talk to people, because they'd have to sit with him for like 2 hours on a flight. I read about that in Newsweek or something. He ended up killing all these people. But anyway, I was telling him about the car and what a horrible, and he said, no, wallahi ya akhi, have a baraka, and boom, he hit a cat. Literally, I'm not making this up. He was telling me what a wonderful thing it was, and he hit a cat and killed it. And I just said, la ilaha illallah. And people said, well, it's just a coincidence, brother. I said it's a great way of proving my point, you know. Now, this idea of not having tawfiq is there in that ayah. وَلَا يَزَالُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا تُصِيبُهُم بِمَا صَنَعُوا قَارِعَةٌ أَوْ تَحُلُّ قَرِيبٌ مِنْ دَارِهِمْ. بِمَا صَنَعُوا, by what they make, they are afflicted. This is what afflicts them. And Fakhr al-Din al-Razi said it means جميع الكفار. Afflicts them all. Some say it was talking about how they treated the prophets. Right? But san'u is an interesting word, because san'a is to make things. Sani' is somebody that makes things, a tool maker. Now if you look at another important verse that uses the same word in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَلْ نُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِالْأَخْسَرِينَ أَعْمَالًا. Can we tell you who are those who are most at a loss in their actions? الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا. Those who all of their endeavors go in this world. Right? All of their endeavors go in this world, and they believe that they're doing excellent in what they're producing. يحسنون صنعا. They think that if they're doing it with itqan, with ihsan, with excellence, right? They're proud of what they're producing, of the excellence of their product, right? And now traditionally, Imam Ali was asked about that ayah, and he said that they were the people of Harura, the Khawarij. They're people who, and Imam Ali is one of the most knowledgeable people in the Book of Allah, but I think that's an ishara and a specific to his time, and it does include people who think that they're doing good in their religious activities, and in fact they don't have tawfiq. But if you look at the following ayahs, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, they're kuffar. بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ وَلِقَائِهِ فَحَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا. So these are people who don't believe in the day of judgment, and they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they make fun of the ayahs of Allah and His messengers, right? Because ذَلِكَ جَزَاؤُهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ بِمَا كَفَرُوا وَاتَّخَذُوا آيَاتِي وَرُسُلِي هُزُوًا. They think that Allah's signs and these things are some kind of joke. Now, another verse, which I think is very pertinent to our condition right now, is this verse in the Quran, Surah Al-An'am, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى أُمَمٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ فَأَخَذْنَاهُمْ بِالْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ. That we have sent already unto peoples that were before thee, and we visited them with tribulation and adversity in order that they might grow humble. The ulama say that Allah afflicts people in order to humble them because they get arrogant. If they don't respond to that, if you looked at that Oklahoma in the picture of that, just look at that as something awesome. And the amazing thing to me is there were houses destroyed all around, and in the middle of them was a house that wasn't destroyed. In other words, you'd have all these houses destroyed, and in the middle of all these destroyed houses, there would be one that wasn't destroyed. And it's like, subhanAllah, it wasn't written for that person to lose their house. The ajab. And then, or it would stop right at a certain point, or there'd be one half of the house missing, and then the other houses down the road. They'd never seen anything like that in Oklahoma. They get tornadoes a lot. They'd never seen anything. And one of the Oklahomans that had grown up his whole life in that tornado alley, they call it, he said, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't have believed it. Right? Where does that come from? Right? And also think about the tribulations in the heartland of America. And the frightening thing is that they don't happen in places where the people are actually much worse. Right? These areas like California. Really. I mean, every day I think, every single day, and I'm not exaggerating, I think to myself, is this the day? Is the adab of Allah coming today? I'm not making that up. Every day in this place, waking up in this godforsaken hell called California. People doing the worst things, corrupting the world. Los Angeles, Hollywood, the media, the pornography. Right? I mean, their pornography last year outdid their mainstream media in sales. And they're not including what Islamically we would consider pornography. They're not including our films, right, which Islamically is the same thing. Right? And then